Committee of the Legislature on Congressional Redistricting. This meeting tonight is called for the purpose of hearing from the public on Congressional Redistricting. Any subject, anything they have to offer dealing with that subject, that's what we're here for. They have been placed on the table here with interest for condensed size maps of redistricting plans, none of which has been adopted by the committee except for the purpose of public comment. Those are, in the last manner of speaking, examples of what might be done with congressional districting, but they're not plans affirmatively adopted by the committee or recommended to the legislature. I want to introduce the members of the committee who are present tonight. On my far left is Representative Thomas Reynolds. Next to him is Senator Ronnie Musgrove. On my immediate left, Senator Clyde Woodfield. On my right is Representative Bruce Massey. And to his right is Senator Kenneth Williams. The other people you see here are the attorneys and our staff. We're glad to have every one of you present tonight. We observed, unfortunately, that this operation that we're involved in does not appear to have created a great deal of public interest, judging by the absence of so many people. But we're glad certainly to have the ones present who are here. I will ask each one of you, if you've not already done it, to sign the attendance report and indicate on there if you wish to address the committee or if you have any written materials that you want to present to the committee. We're glad to receive those. At this time, I'm going to recognize Mr. Steve Miller, who is staff counsel for the committee. We have asked Mr. Miller to give a brief resume or recap on each one of these plans that we have so that you can better understand what they are. And this is probably as much for the edification of the committee as it is for members of the public. I think it will be interesting to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current congressional districts were adopted by the legislature in 1986 and based on the 1980 census. In light of the 1990 census, these districts have become severely out of balance with respect to their populations due to migration within the state, various different rates of growth in various areas of the state. This map here depicts the 1986 Congressional Redistricting Plan. The first district in the northeast corner of the state, and these figures are with respect to the 1990 census. This first district has about 13,000 people more than the ideal district size. The second district is about 42,000 people short. The third district has almost 16,000 people too many. The fourth district has almost 8,000 short. And the fifth district on the coast is nearly 21,000 over. This joint committee has released certain redistricting plans for public comment, and they are identified by date. June the 10th, 1991, June the 12th, 1991, July the 13th, 1991, and July the 12th, 1991. None of these plans have been adopted except for purposes of release for public comment. Prior to releasing these plans, the committee adopted certain legal criteria that should be used in drawing any congressional plan. There are 7 of these criteria, and I will summarize them now. The first one is that the population of congressional districts should be as equal as practicable. Second one is that redistricting plans should not dilute minority voting strength. The redistricting plan should avoid a political gerrymander. Districts must be composed of contiguous territory. Districts should be compact. Districts should cross county lines the least number of times possible, and if county lines are crossed, election precincts should be followed if possible. And finally, consistent with the other legal requirements, the redistricting plan should avoid a contest between incumbent congressmen and should preserve the cores of the present congressional districts.
Could you give us 5 again?
Districts should be compact. These 4 plans have certain features in common, and I can only show you 3 of them at a time. All of the plans released for public comment could be reasonably referred to as change plans. The second district has lost the most population of any district, and it is also the only district with the majority of black population. The fourth district has a substantial black population. But basically, all 4 of these plans retain the second district as a majority black district and retain the fourth as having a substantial black population. All of these plans move black majority precincts in Panola County from the first district into the second district. All of the plans move a white precinct in Atala County from the second district to the third, and a black precinct from the third district to the second. That's in Atala County. All of these plans take the former Ridgeland precinct in Madison County out of the third district and put that either into the second or the fourth district. All of these plans keep Choctaw and Rankin County intact. These counties are split under the current plan. And all of the plans move the second district into the city of Jackson in varying degrees. In other words, the second district starts creeping southward into the city of Jackson to pick up population in all of these plans. The June 10th plan, in particular, moves Montgomery County from the first district to the second and splits Clay County to balance population. It takes the 5th district out of Jones County completely and splits Wayne County to balance population between the 3rd and 5th district. The overall deviation for this plan is 145 persons. The second district is 54% black voting age population, and the 4th district is 38.36 black voting age population. The June 12th plan and it moves Montgomery County, Choctaw, and Webster counties from the 1st to the 3rd districts, and moves part of Clay County from the 3rd to the 1st district. In other words, it splits Clay County again to balance population. It also takes the 5th district completely out of Jones County. The 5th district moves completely south of Jones County and splits Wayne County to balance population between the 3rd and 5th districts. The overall deviation for this plan is 87 persons. The second district is 57% black voting age population, and the 4th district is 35% black voting age population. The June 13th plan moved Grenada County from the 2nd to the 1st district and moves Montgomery, Choctaw, and Webster counties from the 1st to the 3rd district, splits Clay County to balance population between the 1st and 3rd districts. It also takes the 5th district out of Jones County and splits Jones County between the 3rd and the 4th districts. This plan leaves Wayne County whole and uses the split in Jones to balance population. It also splits Lamar County to balance population between the 4th and 5th districts. The overall deviation for the June 13th plan is 75 persons. The 2nd district is 57% black voting age population, and the 4th district is 34.85% black voting age population. And then finally, the July 12th plan moves Montgomery County from the 1st district to the 2nd, moves Choctaw from the 1st to the 3rd, right here, splits Webster County to balance population, and takes the 5th district out of Jones County entirely. Once again, this plan also splits Lamar County as a change from the current plan. The overall deviation of this plan is 171 persons. The 2nd district is 55% black voting age population, and the 4th district is 37.86% black voting age population. Mr. Chairman, that's the summary of the plans.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next order of business would be for us to hear from any persons who are here to address the committee. I have the name of only one person so far that has indicated he wants to make a oral presentation. Is there any other persons?
Mr. Chairman, I neglected to say that all of the precinct lines in these plans are as of October the 1st, 1990, and that none of these plans split any precincts.
My comment at October 1, 1990, date, that is the date on which we had cut off putting the data into the data bank as it related to precincts, and that's why we used that date, October 1, 1990, for precinct description. Mr. Michael Sayer is the only person I have listed to speak. Are there any other persons present who want to address the committee? Mr. Sayer, you may speak from any place you like. There's a microphone right here.
I want to make sure they can see me from back there. Well, it's good to see you all again, and I see that I don't have to hurry, right? Let me start out by responding to something that Senator Miller raised in his presentation about the interest in these proceedings. My job, as some of you know, is with Mississippi Action for Community Education, MACE, where I'm coordinator of field services and special projects. And I'm also working with the Mississippi Redistricting Coalition, and I also work with the spokesperson for the Delta Redistricting Working Group. And you know from our work together on the legislative redistricting that we've taken a keen interest in this process, and that we've spent a great deal of time working with people out in the community, not only in the Delta but elsewhere in the state, around these issues. I would like to suggest to you and share with you that based on our experience, there is a great deal of interest in these proceedings, a great deal of concern about the effect that the congressional redistricting process will have on the ability of the black community throughout the state, but especially in the Delta, to have a fair and reasonable opportunity to elect a representative of its choice, and to have its needs and interests effectively considered at the congressional level. I think one of the problems that you have with this proceeding, and if you look around, you have only 6 of you, aside from your staff, and 6 persons in the audience, 2 of whom, at least 2 of whom are here in official capacities with Congress people, 2 of your 5 Congress people. One is a newspaper editor, right, or was, and 2 of us work with Mace, and maybe some other people are going to begin to arrive. The question I have is sort of why. I'm not sure that this is anything other than rhetorical at this point because the die is cast, but why set these hearings at 5:30 in the afternoon for each of them when you had such an excellent turnout at some of the hearings last spring and back in October of the previous year, when you held them in the evening and gave people an opportunity to get off work and to do what they had to do to take care of family business and get to the hearings. When I saw your schedule come out, and there has not been a lot of advance notice on this to prepare to get people out, which is a second problem, when I saw the 5:30 schedule, I said, we're not going to have a lot of people. If the purpose of this hearing, purpose of these hearings, is to open up this dialogue between this committee and people from the community, the only thing worse than 5:30 would have been prior to 5 o'clock. But this is not enough time for people to get off work. You know their employers are not going to allow them time to get off in order to come to this kind of a proceeding. And a lot of people have a long way to go to get to Oxford or to get to Cleveland. And the other element is, which I cannot understand, is that you chose to hold these hearings in relation to Oxford, and particularly in Cleveland, at historically white schools. All of your other hearings are at courthouses. And the last hearing in Jackson on October 25th is at the Capitol. If you were going to hold these hearings at schools in the community, then why isn't the hearing in Jackson being held at Jackson State or at Tougaloo? When you had hearings in Clarksdale last year, or earlier this year, and in Greenville, you had a very solid turnout, and they were in the evening, and they were in the courthouses. And I raise a question with you as to whether, what the motivation, what the thinking was in holding hearings in a situation in which you have an empty. We could have met at a local restaurant. This is not good for you, and it's not good for us. This is supposed to be an opportunity to share information and get the best possible result. So I raise that question with you. And Delta State, is not, let me come back to that for a second. Delta State and Cleveland is just an absolutely baffling selection. When you think about all of the places in the Delta, we're talking about what is your second principle, second announced principle by way of criteria, in which is really the thorn which you're going to have to remove in order to have a successful process, has to do with diluting black voting strength. Right? Because the equalization of population is relatively easy and is certainly non-controversial. So your second criteria is the one that you're going to really need to focus on, the one you need to build confidence in terms of your input from the community and your input to the community, and you pick Delta State and Cleveland as a site at 5:30 in the afternoon, which minimizes the effective opportunity for people in the Delta, particularly the black community, to participate in that process. We know one of the historic problems in the whole voting process, in the selection of precinct locations, the selection of places to vote, has to do with places which have historically been friendly or unfriendly to the black community. Delta State has not historically been a friendly site. It would have been much more effective to be at the courthouse. Now, because this is a new set of hearings, I'm going to also raise some things we've gone over before with regard to the legislative redistricting, but the same issue arises. You have 24 members on this committee, only 3 of whom are black. It's about a 12.5% ratio of black to the total population of this committee. Black community represents over 35% of the people in the state according to the 1990 census, and you have a woeful underrepresentation on this committee. Caused a great deal of problem in relation to the legislative redistricting process, and we raised the same concern and the same objection to the composition of the committee as it now stands, meaning no disrespect. as we meant no disrespect before when we raised this question, to any of the members of this committee. But it's not appropriate for that kind of underrepresentation to go on. As is the circumstance in life, you're going to wind up in connection, when you turn the calendar year, you're going to have at least 4 vacancies on this committee as a result of retirement or election results. And we would like to suggest, vigorously urge this committee, by whatever selection process is utilized to pick the members of this committee, that those vacancies be filled by black members of the legislature in order to seek to rectify the underrepresentation imbalance which now exists on the committee. And even if all 4 of those seats were filled by black representatives, that would only give you, at this point, 7 out of 24, which still wouldn't give you a 35% ratio, I don't believe. We're not talking here about proportional representation. We're talking about a fair opportunity for the needs and interests of the black community throughout the state to be heard, to be felt, to be represented on this committee. And historically, that hasn't happened. Now, we do not have for you tonight 1 or more alternative plans that we intend to present, because the final polishing of the data was still being worked on today. But we anticipate that there will be at least 1 and possibly more alternative plans presented tomorrow night at Cleveland. And we will do the best that we can to present the information provided at these hearings, and that we are going to try to develop on our own to people in the community to enhance the information sharing process, because we are desperately concerned that these public hearings are not going to meet the needs of getting the information out because of the time and location at which they are they are being held. And I just want to raise some points about what we think the focus needs to be. We are glad to see, once again, that the criteria adopted by the committee emphasizes the importance of not diluting black voting strength, and that that is a matter of state policy, and that that policy needs to be implemented. We want to also emphasize that in evaluating the plans and in reviewing what is meant by not diluting black voting strength, we are not only talking about the problem of retrogression. That is to say that, for example, in District 2, that the black voting age population would not go below what it was before. We're also talking about the need to ensure that the black community has an effective opportunity, a reasonable opportunity, to elect a representative of its own choice. Now, we know that that's going to be a little bit more subtle and a little bit more complicated in this instance. So I want to put up front on the table, as I try to walk carefully through this minefield, not being a minefield of split precincts, but a minefield of complex loyalties. I want to make some suggestions that we need to be thinking about a black voting age population in the 2nd District of at least 60%. So you're talking about a total black population of at least 65%. in order to have a black voting age population of about 60%. And the reason we need to be thinking in those terms is because we need to take the long view about the needs and interests of the black community in this situation. And the fact that the particular congressman holding the office in this particular district at the present time may be able to, or may feel that he is able to win election in this district with a lower percentage, may result from some very special concerns and considerations relating to his individual situation that are not generally applicable to the circumstances and conditions of that district. And that when we're talking about a reasonable and effective opportunity, we have to have a very sensitive and clear historical viewpoint about what's gone on in that district and the particular aftermath of the particular litigation in the 1980s that led to the particular design of that district and the special election history that followed from that and the special relationships that may have developed, which at least for the moment may have temporarily broken the appearance of systematic racial bloc voting that goes on in the Delta. We must not forget that the history of congressional redistricting in this state has been fraught with a focus on minimizing the ability of the black community to elect a representative of its own choice. And we are very pleased that we've had the opportunity to have Mike Espy as a congressperson from that district. But we also recognize that as history goes on, that he may not be there for any of a variety of reasons, including his own choice. If he wants to run for other office, then that office won't be filled by him. And we understand, we have some very keen concern about whether anyone else could win that district with as low a black voting age percentage, have even a reasonable opportunity to win that district with a black voting age population of 54%, as is suggested, I believe, in your June 10th plan. Then you have one for 55, and then you have one for 57. The Delta has always had very special problems, which I don't need to recount here, again, but you're fully aware of them in terms of the disparity in income, in education, voter registration, voter turnout, plantation mentality problems that grow out of the history. So we are going to be coming to you with alternative plans which suggest that the black voting age population and the black total population is going to need to be more than any of the plans which are now on the boards, which your maximum, I believe, is 57.12 in terms of black voting age population. In addition to that, we're concerned about the issue of compactness. If you look at the district as it now exists, and each one of your 4 proposals, none of which I think are facing you, but you probably have them there, you know that you're running from the tip of DeSoto County all the way down to the southern end of Jefferson County, which is an enormous district physically in which to campaign, in which black candidates are at an enormous economic disadvantage in that kind of a large district. And we are concerned about trying to fashion plans which will make that district more compact, more cohesive, give more of an opportunity for people who live within reach of each other to participate together in the political process. You've got people from Jefferson and Claiborne and Warren, you know, in the same district with Tunica, Quitman, Coahoma, parts of Panola, parts of Tallahatchie, and so on. It's an enormous stretch. It's got to be a good, what's it, 4.5, 5-hour drive? I guess it depends on whether you have immunity or not as to how fast you can get there. But it's an enormous stretch of territory. And we really need to be concerned about that. It's one of your criteria, although it's lower down on your list than some of the others. And I think that's an appropriate shaping of it. But, I mean, shaping of your priorities. But I think that we really need to be concerned about that, because especially the larger the district and the lower the black voting age population, the less opportunity, the less reasonable opportunity there is for the black community to elect a representative of its own choice. We're all aware of that, and we need to deal with that. I think I'm going to leave any further comment about this to the presentation of plans, which we anticipate would be tomorrow, rather than to go into any further detail, because it would be easier to do that in conjunction with such a presentation. If there are any questions that anyone has, I will be glad to, to answer them at this point. Take care, Tom.
There may be questions from members of the committee. You'll see if I see recognition. If there are any questions, say maybe they want to reserve those until you do present your plan tomorrow or whenever.
Chairman, may I make a statement?
Yes, what is your name?
Larry Cobb from Oxford.
Yes, sir. You can come right on down here or from where you are, either one.
Mr. Chairman, I had no intention of making a statement when I came here. I came just to listen, but it's been pointed out that I may be the only average voter that's here tonight, so I would like to make one comment as an average voter. I don't know much about flat traps that the gentleman, minefields that this gentleman alluded to. Being an old fighter pilot, I do understand flat traps, and I'm going to try to avoid any here if there are any tonight that I might run into. Looking at your plan, looking through, it appears that the most restrictive of the rules that you laid down to follow was the one of number of people that's in the district. And as a voter and being out here and meeting a lot of people, I think our election process in the state of Mississippi is somewhat complicated now. We have multiple primaries now. We have multiple races on different years. There's so many different voting districts for different offices. I think that the most important criteria, and the one that I'd like to suggest that you use as the number one criteria for drawing these lines, is to stay within county lines as much as possible. It's very confusing for the average voter when he lives right across the street in a town from someone else, and they have one congressman and the ones across the street have another. I think that's more confusing to the voter, and I think it's more of a disservice to the voter than some of the other restrictions. And so I would like to ask that when you're drawing these lines, if you would, to consider this criteria put it at very high priority on your list of criteria to determine what the boundaries will be. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Mr. Cobb, there may be some questions from members of the committee, which you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Mic checks. Mic. Testing.
We're glad to welcome each of you here tonight. I'm Payne Miller. I'm chairman of the Joint Legislative Committee on Congressional Redistricting, and it'll be my duty to preside over this meeting. And I will recognize each of you if you've signed on this list that we have. I hope that the ones who want to address the committee have checked off there, but if you didn't do that and you decide you want to address the committee, you'll have an opportunity to do that too. I want to introduce the members of the committee who are present here tonight. And on my left at the end is Representative Thomas Reynolds. And next to him on my left is Representative Robert Clark. On my immediate right is Senator Kenneth Williams. And on the far right over here, field. The others that you see here are our attorneys and staff members. We hope that your appearance before the committee will be of your liking, and I'm going to recognize at this time, let me make this preliminary statement. These hearings are designed to inform the committee of public opinion as it relates to congressional redistricting plans. The committee has developed, through its staff, 4 possible or potential plans. None of those plans has been adopted officially. They are at the rear of this room. The maps of those are, and I believe there are smaller maps and data available on the table to my right at the front of the room. The plans that you have are simply examples of ways in which redistricting could be done. That is to say, they are nearly, very nearly equal in population in each district. They try not to dilute black voter strength. They are reasonably compact, and we think that they are something to work from. And that's why we have those, is for people to look at those plans, make suggestions for any changes in those plans, or propose some other plans that are not even based on any of these. We hope you'll take a look at those and be able to tell us what you think about them. At this time, I'm going to recognize Mr. Steve Miller, who is staff counsel for the committee, to make a preliminary explanatory statement about the 4 plans that you have before you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current congressional districts were adopted by the legislature in 1986 based on the 1980 census. Now that we have received the 1990 census data, you can see that the districts have become out of balance with respect to their populations, due primarily to migration within the state and different rates of growth in various areas of the state. This map over here, this first map, shows the current congressional district. Changes on this map would show that the first district is 13,000, has 13,000 people too many. The second district has 42,000 people too few. The third district has 15,000 people too many. The fourth district down in southwest Mississippi has almost 8,000 people short, and the fifth district on the coast is about 20,000 over. The Joint Committee developed 4 plans that are depicted by these 4 maps, and the statistical summaries are on that table over there. They're identified by date: the June the 10th, 1991 plan, the June the 12th, the June the 13th, and the July the 12th plans. None of these plans have been adopted by the committee, but they've merely been released to elicit public comment on the plans. In drawing these plans, Well, before these plans were drawn, the committee adopted certain guidelines for redistricting, and I will summarize them. The first one is that the population of congressional districts should be as nearly equal as practical. The redistricting plan should not dilute minority voting strength. The redistricting plan should avoid a political gerrymandering. Districts must be composed of contiguous territory. Districts should be compact. Districts should cross county lines the least number of times possible, and if county lines are crossed, election precinct lines should be followed if possible. And finally, consistent with other legal requirements, the redistricting plan should avoid a contest between incumbent congressmen and should preserve the cores of the present congressional districts. All of these plans are drawn based on the precincts as they existed on October the 1st, 1991. None of these plans split any voting precincts in the state. Now, there are certain provisions that are common to all four of these plans that have been released. All four of the plans could reasonably be referred to as a least change plan. The present 2nd Congressional District in the Delta area has lost the most population of any district, and it is also the only district that has a black majority population. The 4th District has a substantial black population in southwest Mississippi. Basically, all of these plans retain the black population majority in the 2nd District and the substantial black population in the 4th District. Now, all of these plans move certain precincts in Panola County from the 1st District into the 2nd District. All of the plans move a white precinct in Atala County from the 2nd District to the 3rd, and a black precinct in Atala County from the 3rd to the 2nd District. All of these plans take the former Ridgeland precinct in Madison County out of the 3rd District and put it either into the 2nd or the 4th Districts. All of these plans keep Choctaw and Rankin counties intact. These counties are split in the current plan. And all of these plans move certain precincts in the city of Jackson into the 2nd District in varying degrees in different plans. Now, with respect to these plans in particular, the June 10th plan, shown on this map here, moves Montgomery County from the 1st District to the 2nd District, splits Clay County to balance population, takes the 5th District out of Jones County and splits Wayne County to balance population between the 3rd and 5th Districts. The overall deviation on this plan is 145 persons. The 2nd District is 54% black voting age population, and the 4th District is 38% black voting age population. With respect to the June the 12th plan, this plan moves Grenada County from the 2nd District to the 1st District, moves Montgomery, Choctaw, and Webster counties from the 1st to the 3rd District, and moves part of Clay County from the 3rd to the 1st District. It also takes the 5th District out of Jones County and splits Wayne County to balance population between the 3rd and 5th Districts. The overall deviation on this plan is 87 persons. The 2nd District is 57% black voting age population, and the 4th District is 35% black voting age population. With respect to the June 13th plan, this plan moves Grenada County from the 2nd to the 1st District, moves Montgomery, Choctaw, and Webster counties from the 1st to the 3rd Districts, and moves part of Clay County from the 3rd to the 1st District. It also takes the 5th District out of Jones County and splits Jones County between the 3rd and 4th District to balance population, and splits Lamar County to balance population between the 4th and 5th Districts. The overall deviation on this plan is 75 persons. The Second district is 57% black voting age population, and the fourth district is 34.85% black voting age population. Then finally, the July the 12th plan moves Montgomery County from the first district to the second district, moves Choctaw County from the first district to the third district, moves Clay County from the third district to the first district, takes the fifth district out of Jones County, and splits Lamar County to balance population between the fourth and fifth districts. The overall deviation on this plan is 171 persons. The second district is 55% black voting age population, and the fourth district is 37.86% black voting age population. Mr. Chairman, that's the summary of these plans.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I don't have but two persons listed on my list who want to address the committee. That's Mr. Michael Sayer and Mr. Ellis Turnage. I'm sorry, Mr. McRae, I do have you, yes. Have you conferred with each other as to what order you want to address the committee? It doesn't make any difference to me if you have a preference.
I'm delighted to go last.
All right, Mr. Turnage, would you like to go ahead now?
I guess, it doesn't matter.
All right.
Participate.
Thank you. This is Mr. Ellis Turnage.
To the Joint Committee, to Senator Miller and the other distinguished senators and representatives that we have here today. I'm appearing here today really just as a citizen of the 2nd Congressional District. I have had an opportunity to review the printouts as well as the materials that have been explained by the committee and handed out here today. My concern with the 2nd Congressional District concerns the black voting age population. I do not feel that either of the plans that have been presented go far enough in establishing the black voting age population majority, and I think that more could be done in that regard, while not sacrificing at all the percentages of the other existing districts, namely being the 4th Congressional District, which has been heretofore considered an influence district in the state of Mississippi. That it's my concern that the population of the Delta will continue to dwindle and is presently continuing to decrease, and that will continue as a trend. And my concern is that with these plans, and that this committee should be very careful in looking at the black voting age population of the 2nd Congressional District, in that the economic conditions of the Delta are not improving at all, and that people are, the housing condition in the Delta is not improving at all, and that citizens of the 2nd Congressional District are migrating out of the district, and I believe that will continue to be a trend at least for the next 10 years. And as we get further into the next 10 years, I believe that will become much more obvious, and that is a real concern that we have here, is that we don't want to see the voting age population of the 2nd Congressional District maintained at a very low minimum. I think that looking at the plans ranging from a voting age population of 54.12 to a voting age population of 57, I believe, 1.2 in a couple of the districts, it's my opinion that neither of these plans will preserve or take into consideration the continued outward migration of black voting age population, and that we would like to see the district increased to a higher level. At this point in time, there has been no alternative plan that has been developed. We do have a demographer here, and I don't know exactly how far she has gotten along into the plan, but that will be presented by other persons here today. But that is my basic concern, is that the black voting age population in the second congressional district, that you look at it, and that you look at the 42,000 people that have outward migrated now, and I think it's reasonable to expect that that trend will continue, and to take that in consideration when you are developing your plan. I believe that the percentage of the black voting age population could be increased from the highest level you have in here now to a level of around 60%, without sacrificing the black voting age population in District 4. And we're going to ask that you seriously consider that in light of the decreasing population in the Delta. And I believe that that would be a fair percentage, around 60% voting age population, and that we would request that actually be done. The other concern that I have is that from the information that was given out by your council there, is that you're going to use the precincts that existed as of October 1 of 1991 to develop these plans. Now, to me, that's going to, knowing and being presently involved in redistricting litigation around the state at the county level at this point in time, it seems to me that with all of these counties that are going through redistricting, that I can't give you an overall assessment because obviously it hasn't been completed all the way down to the various counties. But I think that the committee should look very, very closely and continue to monitor the redistricting at the county level, because conceivably in a lot of these areas where you have an overlapping counties that borders between District 1 and District 2, and preferably between District 2 and District 4, you could have a lot of precincts that have been changed around, and with that, the changes that could be made in the precincts which existed on 10/1/91 could very well be changed by redistricting at the county level, which is going to take place in the very near future. I think that's something that this committee should take a hard look at and to study. I don't have a study that I could present to the committee at this time concerning that precinct information, simply because all of those changes have not been made. And I think that that is another reason why that the black voting age population should be formulated around the 60% area, is because of that grave, not just mere possibility, but I believe a probability. I mean, you're changing, and there have been changed a substantial number of county voting precincts in the various counties throughout Mississippi. Not only is that change going to continue to affect the election of state representatives, it's also going to affect the judgment that was entered by the federal court down in the Martin v. Lane cases, where that they reshape some of the existing chancery and circuit court districts. I think that this state, the Joint Legislative Reapportionment Committee needs to take a hard look at coming up with some fast rules concerning precinct structures in Mississippi. It's obviously a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem. When you go in and change these precincts and the county boards of supervisors come in at a later date and change them, all of those changes are affecting other changes within the existing judicial lines that was created by the three-judge court down in Jackson concerning the chancery and circuit court districts throughout the state of Mississippi. I think that that's something that the state legislature or this committee might want to make recommendations to the full legislature on, or coming up with some procedures. For precinct structures throughout the state. It's going to be a real problem. I can't sit here today because I haven't had an opportunity to finish a study on the effect of this redistricting plan for the representative districts, as well as for the supervisor districts as they presently exist on October 1, and as they will be changed as each county effectuates its new redistricting plan, is going to have on the judicial districts, or we'll have on the representative districts. But that's something that this committee and the state legislature need to take a hard look at and try to come up with a plan to deal with that, because it's a very, very potential dangerous problem. I don't think that anyone has attempted to come up with a solution to the problem. I want to point it out to you. I think that that's another reason why that this committee should maintain a black voting age population in and around the 60% range. Those are my thoughts and comments at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Turnage. There may be some questions from members of the committee, which you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I'm not sure if there are questions. There are questions from members of the committee. Let me make this observation, Mr. Turnage. I'm not sure that Mr. Miller made it clear. It's October 1, 1990 is the cutoff date instead of 91.
Well,
makes it even worse.
that's my point. I thought he said 91. In fact, I wrote down 91, but even with 90, that aggravates.
1990.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that it took us years, literally, under state law mandates, even to find out where the precincts were in this state, and to make maps of those precincts, and get legal descriptions. Then we had to have some kind of cutoff date because we're putting all that in the computer. And that's the reason for that. It's a mechanical problem only. And I certainly also have to be chairman of the elections committee of the Senate. I don't know if I'll be that next year or not, because we'll have a whole new Senate. But I certainly am in sympathy with the seriousness of the things you mentioned to us about precinct lines and how they are confusing to the voters. I don't think there's any doubt in any of our minds that that's a confusing situation out there. But I appreciate your remarks. But I did want to clarify that we're talking about October 1, 1990 instead of 91.
Well, I mean, as you correctly point out, I mean, using the 1990 precinct lines, I mean, that's going to even further complicate it, I mean, to a much higher, degree. I mean, I think that if this committee would seriously look at a plan or a regulation or rule or whatever you want to call it that would have state mandated precincts, and that counties could change that precinct for their administrative purposes within their county, but that all of the voting would actually be done based upon the state precincts. Well, let me give you a perfect example. I mean, because what I said may not be, from a practical standpoint, clear. In other words, the state would define what the actual 2,000 or however many the state determined using whatever criteria y'all chose to come up with, would determine the number of precincts, the geography of those precincts within each of the individual counties, but that wouldn't tie the Board of Supervisors' hand at all. They would still be able to come in working within the geographical confines that you've set up to allow them to create whatever sub-precincts to form their 5 supervisory districts or their Board of Education districts, where you have 2 or more school systems within the same county, and you have to have 5 special districts. I mean, it's a nightmare out there that's going on that nobody is even talking about, that hasn't been addressed at all by the legislature or by the court. And it's something that I want to put you on notice of, and I'm sure that there's something that can be done about it, and it's my thought that if the precincts were created by the state, that they could be changed for whatever local purposes were necessary as administrative, or what we refer to as sub-precincts, within the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCray?
To the committee, I'd certainly like to thank you for the opportunity to allow me. I do have some real concern, and a number of those concerns was raised by my colleague Michael Sayers on last evening. One being the time, and the other being the location by which these proceedings are being held. I've spent about 20 years working as an organizer in the Mississippi Delta. And I think if you really want to keep members of the African American community away from meetings, then you have them in the height of the farming season, during daylight hours, and especially in institution that has not that is not frequent by members of the black community. And I think that's a serious concern that we need to deal with, and that was, as I said, raised quite pointedly on last evening. Another concern I have is that a great deal of interest been placed on not diluting black voting strength, and the phrase influence district, as I read in the papers this morning. And one of the concerns I have is when I look at all four of the plans that is presented by the committee, that each of the plans has majority voting age population in 4 of the 5 congressional districts. And even in the 2nd congressional district, when you seriously look at all of the plans, I think there's some real serious question about whether the 2nd congressional district is a majority black district or is a majority influence district. And I raise that because the largest percentage that I've noticed is 57.12. And I think if you worked, even if you haven't worked in the 2nd congressional district, I think one thing is pretty clear, even when you throw out the fact of low participation of African American in the electoral process because of the short period we've been involved in that process, the fact that this disparity between black, white, in education, income, and all of those things. One of the things that's quite apparent is that when you look at voting age population, that becomes extremely deceiving because blacks are disproportionately ran through the criminal justice system by which they are disfranchised, and there's a number of people who actually quote free citizen in the African American community that is legally disfranchised because of that fact. And I'd like to suggest to you that that number would be higher than 7%, which means that even in the 2nd congressional district, looking at the plan that has the largest black voting age population, that when it get down to actual participation, then that is not a majority black district. And I'd like to also emphasize that if the committee is serious, and in reading the paper, if it's possible to create a district that has a 60% voting age population, black voting age population, then I think a plan should be drafted by this committee and presented. Because I think if these are 4 plans used as suggestive plan that could be approved by this committee, then I think all possible plans and at least a number of plans that maximize black participation in the process, I think that should be presented to us, that we can see what would actually look like a 60% plus black district, which in my opinion will give the African American community in this state a real opportunity to elect a person of their choice. Thank you. If there's any question, I'll be more than happy to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Are there questions from members of the committee? Don't see any. Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. Mr. Michael Sayer.
Good evening, Senator Miller and other members of the committee. I want to go over some new matters and some matters we touched on yesterday. For the record, let me introduce myself again. I work with Mississippi Action for Community Education, where I'm coordinator of field services and special projects. I also work with the Mississippi Redistricting Coalition, and I also work with the Delta Redistricting Working Group. There was an error in the way in which the Clarion Ledger yesterday characterized my remarks, and I just want to clarify that for the record. Welcome to the club. Yeah. Well, I'm sure nobody was reading it in anticipation of the hearings in Washington today, but they suggested that Mace was going to be presenting a plan or set of plans with regard to the redistricting, and that is not true. Mace is not going to be presenting any plans. To the extent that we're going to present plans, they're going to be presented, and that was the reference when I said we yesterday, we're going to present plans through the Mississippi Redistricting Coalition. And I happen to work for Mace, and I also happen to work with the coalition. I just want to clarify any confusion that may exist about where we intend to generate plans from. But in that regard, I want to also suggest that on reflection, it is a shame that the staff hasn't seen fit, the staff of the committee hasn't seen fit to attempt to generate some plans, as you characterized them, models from which we could jump off, which had at least the minimum of 60% black voting age population for the 2nd Congressional District. It would have been very helpful for the staff to have generated those possibilities so that we could compare the consequences of those efforts with the efforts that you've already made to create plans in the area of 54 to 57% black voting age population. I want to suggest again that over the course of the last year, a number of us have been working very intensively in the entire area of the 2nd Congressional District on a county level and also on a district-wide level with regard to the redistricting process. And it is I'll speak for myself, it is my very clear impression from talking with people all over this district that there is intense concern about what the outcome of the redistricting process will be with regard to this district, 2nd Congressional District. And I would have to say that I have yet to hear anyone from the community within the Delta express an interest in seeing or finding a way to minimize the black voting age population in this district. I would have to say, at least in my experience, and from my conversations with others with whom I've worked and others with whom I've come into contact, it's their experience that everyone who is interested in this issue is concerned at seeing that the black voting age population in the 2nd Congressional District is maximized. It is no injury to the incumbent, Congressman Mike Espy, for the black voting age population in this district to be maximized. It's no injury. It is in the best interest of the black community that it be maximized, that there be at least a 60% black voting age population in this district. Notwithstanding the ability of the individual incumbent to win in this district with a black voting age population that's less than 60%. We would argue that that is the result of a number of circumstances which are special to the congressman and to the historical point at which he was elected, and that should not be used as the singular measure in understanding long-term what this district should look like. and what its needs are from the point of view of having a representative circumstance where black community has a reasonable opportunity to elect a representative of its own choice who will be responsive to the needs and interests of that community. And Senator Miller, I don't know whether you were quoted accurately in the Clarion Ledger yesterday, but nevertheless, the issue was joined on the question of whether or not it would be more useful to have an influence district, than to have a district in which you have a black representative. And I would suggest to you that the contrast in positions between incumbent Mike Espy and incumbent Parker in the so-called influence district in the 4th with regard to the Civil Rights Bill that has been pending on and off before the Congress is an excellent example. And some of the past legislation, which was of special concern to the black community in this state, and the difference in their responses to that from the point of view of support or rejection of those bills is indicative of what influence may mean in this state. I don't think that we can reasonably justify trying to focus on minimizing the ability to elect a black representative from one district in order to have influence in 2 districts. Because the history of racial bloc voting and the history of lack of responsiveness on the part of white public officials to the needs and interests of the black community is well documented. And all you have to do is go to the cases and the reports of those cases to find that documentation in this state and its current history, not ancient history, unfortunately. Procedural question I forgot to ask last night. Would it be possible for us to get a copy of Steve Miller's summary of the changes in the districts as between the current situation and the various proposals? I know I took it down longhand, but it would really help us from an accuracy point of view if we could get a copy of that.
It's a public record. You can request it from the committee.
Okay.
You have their address and telephone.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Let me raise again the issue of underrepresentation on this committee. We raised it throughout the hearings at the legislative level. I want to raise it again here at the congressional level. The black community is woefully underrepresented on the Joint Standing Legislative Committee on Congressional Reapportionment. There are only 3 black representatives out of 24, which is a ratio of approximately 12.5% in a situation in which the black community in this state approximates something larger than 35%. I want to point out again that we consider that to have a major impact on the setting of policy by this committee. We think that was reflected, unfortunately, in the way in which the process worked at the legislative level. We also see an opportunity to begin to rectify that imbalance. I guess there'll be new committees appointed in January, but in any event, we know that there'll be at least 4 vacancies in this committee as the result of retirement or the outcome of elections. And if those seats were filled with black representatives, you would make a major dent in the underrepresentation on this committee. And we would like to see this committee use its influence to the extent possible to seek to, or help to seek to rectify that imbalance. I also want to indicate, I had said last night that we were going to present a plan or a set of plans tonight. As I indicated to some of the folks earlier, we are not in a position to make that presentation tonight on the specific plans because we ran in to some mechanical glitches in getting them prepared in time. but we do expect to be able to present them by the end of this hearing process at the end of October. At least that is our intention, to be able to do that. We want to make sure when we present them that they are in a form that will be as final as possible. And that brings me to the point about the time and place of these hearings. I want to echo Mr. McCrae's remarks in that regard. I had raised that last night. I think that your turnout here today is as reflective of the difficulty that you created by holding these hearings at 5:30 in the afternoon at an historically white institution in the town of Cleveland as it was in Oxford. We have about the same number of people in the audience, and we have even fewer members of the committee here this evening. Let me add a point that I failed to note last night. I think that the fact that you're holding them during the election season is difficulty. A great many of the people with whom we work are busily and intensively engaged in the elections themselves, and have had great difficulty having to choose to come to these hearings as opposed to getting the work done in the field that they need to get done. I think that many of your members on this committee are not here for the same reason. And if the intention, as you have indicated, is to get input from the community and for the committee members to receive that input, it is clear from the first two hearings, probably in the area in which your crafting of a district will be most controversial, that has failed. Your committee, you don't have even half the committee here. I don't know how they're going to evaluate, or how they would have evaluated the input had there been a great deal more input than you've gotten from these two hearings. And you haven't gotten the input, on the other hand, even if they had been here. I would like to suggest, in all earnestness, that you suspend the hearing process until after November 5th, when the elections will be over, and your committee members will feel free to attend, and people from the community will be in a better position to attend, and that you schedule the hearings as you did last fall and last spring so successfully in the evening at 7 or 7:30 as a starting point, and that you hold them at the county courthouses or other suitable courthouse facilities in those communities, and that you pick the largest or larger communities like Greenwood, Clarksdale, or Greenville, for their location and for their size, and maximize the opportunity for people to come out and to really exchange with you in the way that they did both last fall and last spring. And the proof was in the pudding. Those hearings were not irrelevant. You held them because you know they are important to the Justice Department. As a result of the hearing process last fall, you developed a state policy criteria for drawing those plans, which for the first time included the criteria of no dilution of black voting strength. And you know, as a result of the hearings in the spring, that hearing process, that there was an enormous impact on the development of plans, suitable plans, for the redistricting of the legislature. Although the ultimate outcome of the initial vote was to adopt plans which ultimately failed with the Justice Department, you were well on the way toward a process which could result in the adoption of acceptable plans. There was certainly an enormous give and take in that process. So the hearings were not irrelevant and not meaningless. And the Justice Department gave some considerable attention to the content of those hearings. That cannot be said for what's going on here today, or what went on last night. And if you are earnest in your concern to receive that input, and for the committee to be aware and to experience that interchange with its constituents and create the atmosphere of accountability and representation, it would be useful to hold those hearings in a context where that can happen. And I would suggest that would happen after November 5th more readily, and in the evening more readily, and at courthouses more readily than what you have now. This is a shame. This should be an embarrassment to all of us, you know, in terms of the seriousness of what's at stake here. This is congressional redistricting. This isn't justice of the peace. We don't have to recount the importance of the federal arena and its impact, even at the lowest level, you know, community level, in terms of funds, consequences of taxation, legislation from A to Z on everything that affects our lives. And we have only 5 representatives in this whole process. An enormous, enormous impact on this process. We got nobody here, right? We look around. There's nobody here. We have all professionals here almost. You know, in terms of people from congressional offices, people from agencies that are involved in a systematic way in this. Where's the community? It's a shame. And we just don't have to sort of acquiesce in this. We can do something about it. Now, if you're going to go through the rest of the hearings, I can understand that and finish the process because they've been announced and it'll be hard to justify canceling them. Okay, that's fine. Hold some more hearings after November 5th, notwithstanding whatever the expense may be. Hold those hearings, especially here in the Delta, because I assure you that we will turn the people out at that time if we hold them in the evening. I want to have one final point. I don't think we ought to underestimate the critical importance of seeing the prohibition against diluting black voting strength as being more than just the issue of retrogression. We have got to look at maximizing the reasonable opportunity of the black community to elect a representative of its own choice. And a 54% district doesn't do that. There's no reason not to be able to create a 60% district. We're going to show you plans that do that. We're going to show you plans that are compact. We're going to show you plans that anticipate what Mr. Turnage so aptly addressed, which was the trend in population that's taking place in this area. It can be done, and it should be done. And the staff, your staff should begin to do that. We'll do some of that, you do that. And we'll do what we did before in the spring, which is compare those plans and take the best of both of them, or all of them, and work out a plan that represents a common understanding. Senator Miller, you indicated, if you were quoted correctly, you indicated in the paper this morning, Clarion Ledger, that it would be possible to draw a 60% black voting age district. And we should do that. Well, I've touched on all the points that I wanted to hit on. If there are any questions, I will be glad to respond to them.
Thank you, Mr. Slayer. Any questions from members of the committee? Mr. Clark?
This is not necessarily a question, but it's a comment on what has been said. I want to commend the staff for doing a fine job in drawing up the plans that they drew up. But there are some additional things that must be done, and that should be and must be done by committee members. First of all, I want you to know, as a member of this committee, I'm concerned about many of the things that you have said and have spoken to, and I personally have already begun to work in that direction. That is particularly with the first the 2nd Congressional District. Because of the black population trend and shifting, it is imperative that in my mind that we have a district that has a VAP of 60% plus. Also, further, I feel that since we are drawing these lines through the year of 2000, that the 2nd Congressional District lines must be drawn following the shift in the population trends. You know, some years ago we thought that the Delta District and the Black District were synonymous. But as black folk leave the Delta, the district lines is going to have to follow the black folk. And another example I want to give that we should consider, let's take for example Madison and Ridgeland. We know that Madison and Ridgeland is becoming whiter and whiter. And if they remain in the 2nd Congressional District, it could be the next 4 years, the district could be a majority white. And I think all of us on this committee and many of us in Mississippi want a majority electable black district. And I want to assure the ones of you who have spoken this evening that as a member of this committee, I will be looking at that very closely.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative.
Other questions from members of the committee? Mr. Sayer, I want to get this in my mind perfectly clear, or as clear as I can. Is it your position that it's imperative, as Representative Clark says, to have a 60% voting age population black district, even if that reduces by several percentage points the black voting age population in District 4? I just want to know if I'm getting your message clearly.
Without suggesting, since I'm not certain, that in order to accomplish a 60% black voting age population in the 2nd District, you would have to, okay? But assuming that that might be one of the consequences. Let me make two kinds of comments. One's a legal one and then one's a non-legal one. From a legal point of view, it is not retrogression if you reduce the black voting age population in a district in a situation in which you do not have on its face what we would characterize as an electable black district, okay? And no one is characterizing the 4th District at this point as being an electable black district, one where a black candidate would have a reasonable opportunity, you know, to win, reasonable chance at winning if they ran in that district. So reducing the percentages in that district when the intention, the purpose, the objective is to enhance the black voting age population in another district in order to bring it into focus as an electable black district within the meaning of Jeffers versus Clinton, for example, the Arkansas legislative redistricting case. In that situation, that is not retrogression. So from a legal point of view, it is my understanding that you can do that, okay? From a practical point of view, looking at it in a non-legal way, I think that Representative Clark's suggestion that we need to have a 60% black voting age population district in order to ensure, in light of what we know to be the shifts in population that are taking place and the circumstances that Mr. McCrae raised with regard to the disparity in income and education, the disparity in registration and turnout, that we need to have more than a district that's in its low or middle 50s or even high 50s in order to have at least one black representative in a state which has 35% plus black population is the priority objective. Now, if you could create 2 electable districts, that would be wonderful. No one that I've spoken with believes that based on the situation in this state, you could create 2 electable districts. If you have to choose between an electable district, a real electable district, and influence districts, it's preferable to have electable districts. No one that I know of really believes in 1991 in Mississippi yet. Whether the situation may change as years go by, we'll have to see. But no one believes yet that you have a situation anywhere in this state where you have real influence on a daily basis on the broad range of issues that come before the congressman outside the Delta. No one I know believes that. People may argue that it's true, but I'm saying no one I know really believes that. And the reason for that is Mike Parker's devastating positions on issues which are of the highest interest, not marginal interest, but the clearest interest, not the vaguest interest, to the black community. And his consistent resistance on those issues makes people doubtful that influence is in the cards at the present time in that district. And so you don't have a close call there. I mean, I'm expressing my own view here. You don't have a close call at this time in that situation. And I, for one, others may disagree, but I, for one, would rather focus on getting at least one representative in the Congress from Mississippi. And I think we can see the kinds of benefits and effect and impact that having Mike Espy in Congress has had, as opposed to having no black representatives at all. If we could have two, that would be wonderful. If we could have one black representative and one who really was responsive to the needs and interests of the black community, that would be wonderful too. But we've got to ensure that at least one district has a reasonable opportunity to elect a black representative, whether it's Mike Espy or somebody else, as time goes by. We don't want to go backwards on that issue. Is that responsive to you? I mean, have I clarified that?
Yes, would have been enough. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I didn't see anybody coming behind me, Senator. So.
Other questions from members of the committee? Any comments from any of the committee members? Any further business? If not, this meeting stands adjourned till Thursday, 5:30 p.m. at